On this edition of the Rev Cooks, the Rev doing some bacon, not bacon, baking. And what's the Rev gonna be baking up today? The 5-ingredient, so simple and delicious, and featured on the backpacking trip to Tamarack Lake, loaf of whole wheat bread. Okay, so today we're making 5-ingredient wheat bread. So I started making my own bread because, I've slowly been surely been like trying to swap out ingredients and sort of make things a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, not as many artificial and unpronounceable ingredients in what I make. So we eat kind of a lot of carbs around here. We eat a lot of breads and whatever. I tried to make sourdough. That was a colossal failure. So I'm like, okay, well, that didn't work. So I thought, okay, well, what's the next kind of bread that we tend to eat frequently? And wheat bread popped into my mind. So I started fiddling around with wheat bread. It was kind of hard at first. I had a lot of fails. I had a lot of like little tiny loaves with super dense like bread, and it was like, So I tinkered with it and tinkered with it and tinkered with it. And then I finally kind of got to this point where I got this 5 ingredients, only 5 clean ingredients, wheat bread. And one of those ingredients is water, and one of them is wheat flour. So like the other 3 is like some salt, some sugar, and some quick rise yeast. So it's a very simple and easy thing to do. It does take a little bit of practice and a little bit of time and patience. But if you do it just right, you get a very delicious, nice and hearty loaf of wheat bread that I know around here that we like. It's good to toast it up. It's good for sandwiches or just kind of plain, like whatever, however you like it. So little bit to do with it. So let's get started. Okay, so as I mentioned in a couple of the other videos in which I use yeast in when I make like the brioche and the naan, temperature control really is everything. So the first thing I'm going to do before I get overly started is I'm going to turn my oven light on, just the oven light, and I've done this before. If you've seen some of my other videos, that's not unfamiliar. That's going to provide a sort of a warm little environment that's going to act like a proving drawer for me. And the way that the wheat bread is going to work is when it's all done and ready, we're going to put it in there to prove, and then we're not even going to take it out. Once we're ready to bake it and it's done proving, we're just going to turn the oven on and let it run. So you'll see as we go through this how that works. So the other thing I want to mention about temperature control is that the yeast, the quick rise yeast that I use, I keep in the fridge. So if I know I'm going to make the bread for a day or whatever, I take the portion of quick rise yeast out of the fridge and let it sit and come to room temperature, because again, temperature control is everything. It probably doesn't make a huge difference if I didn't do that, but I just like to play it safe. So this is 1 tablespoon of quick rise yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in there and get it at room temperature. Then I need to make sure I'm mixing this with some sugar and some water. So the thing about this is we need to add to this 1 tablespoon of sugar. So you got a tablespoon of yeast and a tablespoon of sugar, okay? And got a little whisk here, maybe give these guys a little bit of a stir to get them kind of going here. And then you're gonna add to that 2 cups of warm water. So warm means somewhere between 105 and 115 degrees. So I've been sort of working this in the microwave a little bit to make sure it gets to that 105 to 115 mark. So I put it in the microwave. I use my temperature thermometer to go ahead and stir it and kind of get all that homogenized a little bit. So checking my temperature here, I'm at 107. It's gonna be 107, a little bit more, maybe close to 108. So if you can see that there, okay. So that's where you wanna be, somewhere between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and add that warm water to our yeast and sugar mixture. This yeast is gonna feed on the sugar. We're gonna give it a little bit of a whisk to make sure that gets nicely incorporated there. Get it all mixed up real good. Okay. And then we're gonna go ahead and cover this. You don't always have to cover your little yeast mixture when you're blooming it, but in this case, I like to do that to kind of keep some of those vapors in there a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover that, and we're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. We're gonna let that yeast bloom for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside, and let it get moving here, okay? Now, while that's blooming, I need to start working on the dry ingredients. So that's only 2 ingredients so far. Well, three of the 5 ingredients, right? You got water, yeast, and sugar. So I've used honey before instead of the sugar. When I first started doing this, I used honey instead of sugar. I found it didn't work as well. You feel free to obviously do what you want with it, but I feel like the sugar made it rise better. It still has the same level of sweetness, but if you like a honey wheat, you can go ahead and give that a go and see if you can get it to work. I just couldn't get it to work. I'm just not that good. I'm just a regular guy just trying to cook for my family here. So I do the best I can and tinker with things as I go. The only other 2 ingredients we need is flour and salt. So here's the thing about the flour. I keep my wheat flour in the freezer, and I've been told that you kind of want to do that. Sorry, it's a little noisy there. Because wheat flour, especially when you get good quality wheat flour, which I do, I like this Bob's Red Mill wheat flour. Whenever you use this stuff, it can go bad. So I like to keep it in the freezer. It'll last longer in the freezer, so I just go ahead and store it in there. So that's a problem though, because now it's frozen cold. So you've got a couple of options here. The clock's running on my yeast. I don't want this to go, too warm too quick on me here, because then I have to start over. So I'm gonna take and I'm gonna warm up my flour in the microwave. So I'm gonna take 4 cups of wheat flour. So I kind of a little bit of an eyeballing here. That's 2. There's 3. And then here's 4. So 4 cups of wheat flour of your choice. You can obviously use organic, stone ground, or grind your own wheat berries, whatever works for you. This I find it's a good brand. It's not like, maybe the most amazing brand in the world, but it's a good brand and I like it. It seems to work really well for me, so that's what I use, the Bob's Red Mill. So I gotta warm this up because it's frozen. And if I add my warm yeast mixture into this frozen temperature, it's gonna drive the temperature of the whole mixture way down, way too quickly, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna microwave this guy a little bit here to kind of get him up to a sort of a nice lukewarm temperature as well. So it takes a little fiddling around to get to that point, but that's fine. This is part of the process of making these things good. In the meantime, I need to start preparing my pan. I'm gonna use this 5x9 loaf pan, our good old-fashioned glass loaf pan here. We've been using this guy for years, but obviously he's well loved. But we're gonna line this with parchment paper, so I'm gonna kind of measure out sort of the parchment paper that I need here. So we're gonna go about like that. Well, we're gonna go ahead and lift this guy. And what we wanna do is we're gonna make for ourselves like a little bit of a, sort of like a sling for this thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and cut this guy. Let's see, I wanna kind of do this maybe this way here. I'm gonna measure what I need over here, so about to that point. Kind of multitasking here, but that's fine. Hey, that's sort of the process of cooking sometimes. Got to multitask a bit. Checking my flour. The bowl's nice and warm. Gonna take my whisk from earlier, give this a little bit of a stir around here, and check my temperature with this. Still pretty cold, so I'm gonna pop it in the microwave for a little longer because I really need this guy to be not ice cold. So back in he's gonna go. Come on, bro, warm up for me. Don't you need to be all cold? I need you to be nice and warm. Anyhow, so I was working on this. I measured like this direction. Maybe that's not quite big enough. So I'm measuring the long ways here. I'm gonna go a little bit more than that. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that then on that crease. Kind of like doing a little, kindergarten craft project here with our parchment paper, but you gotta make sure you're fully in line. I suppose you could use some sort of a cooking spray. I don't love cooking sprays. I kind of only use them when I have to. So I'm gonna go ahead and line my loaf pan here. So that's the nice sort of a long ways there. And then I'm gonna put this guy in this way here. So kind of trying to cover the edges. What's probably going to happen here is that it's going to maybe stick in these corners a little bit. So I might take and cut a little bit wider of a parchment paper to cover as much of that as possible. But we'll kind of see when we get to that point. Checking my flour again here. The bowl's getting nice and warm. So if I give this guy some movement, maybe that'll kind of warm this guy up a bit here. All right. Yeah, so now it's got a nice warm feeling to it, so that the cold is kind of all out of it. So I'm going to add it to a larger bowl so that I'm ready to mix these guys together when they get to that point. So get all my flour out of there, don't want to lose any. Okay, and so we still need to add the salt to this. So what we're going to add is we're going to add to this 2 teaspoons of salt. So my teaspoon measure here. So 2 teaspoons of salt. And the salt is optional. You can kind of like not add this. We found that that when we did this without the salt, it just felt like it needed a little bit of flavor, a little bit more of a flavor boost with the salt. So we decided to just sort of add the salt in. Well, I should say we, I mean, really I decided to add some salt in. And it really boosted the whole flavor of all of the bread. So, you know, you don't have to. Obviously, you can leave the salt out if you have salt issues. If you have high blood pressure or something, obviously go ahead and leave that out. But, you know, this is what works for us. So we're going to go ahead and mix those guys together here. So that's all my ingredients. Now I'm just waiting for my yeast to bloom there. I'm going to mix it all together, and we're just going to get the guy going. So we got a couple minutes before that happens. So we're going to go ahead and give that couple more minutes, and we'll check back in when we're ready to add the yeast mixture in and get this guy moving. All right, there goes my alarm. 10 minutes of blooming on my yeast. So, and look at this guy. Whoa, isn't he lovely, foamy? Look at that. Whew. That's what you're looking for. Nicely bloomed yeast. Look at the foam on that guy. So that's good. We'll make ourselves a little well here in our warmed up flour and salt mixture. The well's not totally necessary, but I feel like doing it, so I'll do it. Pour all that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and mix this stuff all together. It's gonna take a little bit of work here to get it all mixed together, but that's fine. Try not to lose any of the flour. If you do a little bit, that's okay, because you're gonna knead it in a little bit and maybe add a little bit of flour as you go here. But it always seems a little bit dry when we first started incorporating this stuff, but that's fine too, right? It still has to be kneaded and formed and all of that, so it doesn't require a lot of kneading, but it is going to require some. Okay, so it's kind of like just a sort of a big dryish mess at the moment, but that's fine. You're just kind of getting this guy going, so you want to get it all mixed together there as best as you can. Okay, and so we're going to put a little bit of flour on our surface here. This is one of these moments in which I wish I had this is going to be a mess, but that's fine. This is one of these times in which I had a nice non-tile surface in my kitchen, but hey, you got to work with the kitchen you have, okay? So like this is where I live, this is where I cook my food, so this is what I do. We're just going to go ahead and dump all that kind of a mess onto there. Maybe make a little spot here for, I got some remnant here, kind of pour that maybe in that little spot inside. Okay, and then we're just going to start forming this guy up. Oh, that feels nice and warm. So we're going to get this all incorporated, just like that. And it's kind of sticky in spots. That's okay. It's going to be a little sticky. You can add a little bit more flour as you go. So just kind of be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and, maybe give myself a little more flour here on my surface. Make myself a little pile of flour over here on the side so I can use it as I go, and I may need more. So anyhow, what we're going to do now is we're going to knead this guy for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer here. So 5 minutes is going. We're just going to give it a nice knead. So I like to knead this by hand. So I do this, maybe it's not the perfect kneading methodology, but it's what I use. Put a little more flour here. I kind of take the heel of my hand, dig it in, fold it over, and then kind of turn it over. Dig, fold, turn it. Dig, fold, turn it. So it's gonna get dry again kind of quick, or sorry, moist, a little bit sticky. That's fine. You don't wanna, yeah, my plastic wrap's not gonna work. That's fine. That's why we have cleaning apparatuses, you know? So you do the best you can with the tools you've got. Need a little more flour here because it's starting to get sticky again. And you're gonna need it, like I said, for 5 minutes until it gets to be kind of on the smoother side. I'm gonna move just over here to one of these cling wrap sections. So again, getting sticky here. Maybe add a little more flour. Maybe a little more flour out of my bag here. Okay, so every time you add flour, it's gonna be less sticky, but you just wanna keep working this guy. I don't know if this is the exact right way that you knead dough, but this is the way I do it. So what we're doing, we're kneading our dough, is we're trying to build up that gluten. That way we get a nice rise out of it. Again, getting overly sticky, but that's okay, right? It's part of the process. It's gonna be a little sticky, you know, and you wanna be careful that you don't add too much extra flour to it. The more flour you add to it, the more dense your dough will be. So, but you're trying to knead this to get a nice smooth texture on it. Like I said, it's about 5 minutes to do this. We can already see it's starting to get smooth here. That's a good sign. So keep going, knead, knead, knead. And like I could use probably a mixing bowl and the little kneading hook to do this, but you know, for some reason, I just really seem to enjoy the wheat bread kneaded by hand. It kind of gives me a real, you know, sense of like, I really, you know, kind of did something with this guy. So just kneading away, again, building up my gluten. And obviously my plastic wrap is not working real well today, but hey, that's part of the fun of making food. You never quite know what's gonna happen on any given day. Like if this thing even turns out today, I'll count it as a miracle. Anytime I'm making bread and it works, I feel like it's a miracle because I'm really just not very good at some of this stuff, but I try my best. So we'll see how this guy looks today. Maybe this video doesn't even make it on the internet. Maybe it's that bad. But as I'm going here, it's starting to become a little less sticky and a little harder to knead. So that's good. Harder to knead means the gluten's getting nicely built up here. The structure of our bread's gonna be nice. Wow, bro, you're just really causing me a problem. So you know what? I'm gonna just do without you then. Gonna be a problem for me? Just go to my top of my tile here. So I use the plastic wrap typically to make it a little bit like easier to get the extra flour up, but that's clearly not going to happen today. And you know what? I'm okay with it because sometimes you got to adapt a little bit when you're cooking, and especially with baking. Baking is such a finicky deal that sometimes it just doesn't work as planned. So you got to adapt a little bit. So just kneading away here as my hands get more and more filthy, but that's fine. It says I got about another minute. So, but you can see how it's getting a nice smooth top. Like I said, you want to kind of knead this for about 5 minutes till it's got this nice smooth texture to it. And it's going to be stiff, but that's good. That tells you that gluten is really acting, and that's what you want. Build us some nice gluten in here, okay? So, oh yeah, get a workout in. I went for a run today, but I didn't go to the gym. That's tomorrow. So once you start feeling like it's really stiff and really hard, but yet smooth like that, you're basically done. So we're gonna make it in somewhat of a loaf-shaped guy here. We wanna make sure we get that nice smooth top if we can. I'll take our pan. Notice I went ahead and recut that long one because I didn't like how the other one looked. Drop that in there, kind of give them a little bit of a push. My kneading timer just went off, so I'm perfect in timing. Okay, so pop that guy in there. and we're just gonna put it into our makeshift, proofer here, our oven with the light on, for about 30 minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and put them in there, and then set our timer for 30 minutes, and we're gonna let them rest and rise for 30 minutes. Once the 30 minutes is up, we're gonna take a look, see if he's got a nice rise to him. If he does, then we are ready to bake. And so we're gonna check back in at some point. You know me, I got a little impatient, so it may not be a 30 minutes when I check, it may be 30 minutes. We'll let you know, so stay tuned. Okay, so my timer just went off for the 30 minutes of proving in our makeshift proving drawer. Let's take a look, the moment of proof. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, looks like he rose pretty good there, huh? A lot bigger than he was when we started this process. So I think we're ready to go ahead and bake this guy. So all we gotta do now is we're gonna turn our oven. We're not gonna take the bread out of the oven, okay? We're just gonna turn the oven on and start baking. So we're gonna turn the oven on to 390. I know, sort of an obscure temperature, but it works, okay? 390. Go ahead and start that guy. It's gonna preheat and all that, and it's just gonna bake away. We're gonna heat it in there for 45 to 50 minutes until the internal temperature, we'll use our little thermometer, hits somewhere between 190 and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's gonna take a little while. I typically check it after about 45 minutes or so. So we'll see if this guy turns out, because every time the bread turns out, it's like another small miracle in my eyes, because making bread is tricky and difficult. So we'll give it some time in the oven and we'll see what happens. Okay, we're about 40 minutes in. We're gonna give it a little peek because we might as well see how it's shaping up in there. Oh, it smells amazing, I can tell you that much. Yeah, so looking pretty good. It's got a nice color to it. A little hard to tell with wheat bread, the coloring, but you can tell it's got a little bit of a brownish tint to it. So we're gonna give it its 5 more minutes, and then we're gonna check the temperature and see if it's ready to pull out. Okay, let's give it a temperature check. I always find it's hard to determine if it's done without giving a temperature check, especially with wheat bread. It's, kind of like always sort of looks that brown color. So again, we're looking for the thermometer to go ahead and put it in the middle. We're looking for it to be between 190 and 210. So we're gonna give it a sec here to come up to temperature, and looks like we are at, well, 160, 70. Oh man, this is exciting. Like watching grass grow. And 185, 86. And so, yep, looks like it's gonna be done, yeah. It's gonna get that 190. All right, we are good to go. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this guy out. All right. Oh yeah. So again, between 190 and 210 for that temperature. If you're more like the 190s, it's gonna be a little more moist on the inside. If you're at the 210, it's gonna be a little drier, a little more darker top, but this looks pretty good. We're gonna go ahead and let it sit here for 5-10 minutes to cool a little bit in the pan. And then we're just gonna go ahead and lift this guy out, as you'll see, and take the paper off and see our beautiful and delicious whole wheat loaf of bread. Okay, we've let it sort of calm down a bit from its cooking in the oven, 5-10 minutes or so. So we're gonna go ahead and take this guy out and behold the beauty of our loaf. So part of the reason you kind of make these little long flaps here is so that this guy will just easily lift right out. If your paper was not perfectly into the sides, it may stick a little bit. Just take a little knife and just sort of poke, sort of lift it out in those little spots, and you'll be good. Move this out of the way here. Okay. And we'll take our paper off, so that guy comes off easy. This guy's gonna take a little bit more work here. Okay, so sometimes that paper sort of rips a little bit, that parchment paper. That's fine. We can get that guy off. Just got a little bit more careful with it. Oh yeah. Okay, little paper never killed anybody, so we'll just take that off there. This other side. Oh man, look at that. A lovely and delicious 5-ingredient loaf of whole wheat bread. I can't wait. So the only last thing you're gonna do, you're gonna let this cool completely and then store it in some sort of a airtight container. I typically wrap mine in like saran wrap or plastic wrap until it's sort of small to fit into a gallon-sized bag. And then I just kind of keep it in there, take as much air out as you can out of it. You might be able to freeze it, I don't know. It never lasts long enough in our house to like need to freeze it. But you do want to make sure that you store it in the fridge. You can store it out in the open, but it will get moldy quick because it's all fresh raw ingredients. So you want to make sure you wrap it tight. I store ours in the fridge. It lasts a week or two, maybe at the most. I mean, again, as I said, we kind of eat it quickly because it's so delicious. Just give yourself little slices or whatever you want to do. But anyway, there you go. Delicious, easy, not like super complicated. Whole wheat bread. Well, there you go. Delicious and hearty 5-ingredient whole wheat bread. Like, not crazy difficult. It does take a little time, but it's not like super difficult or technical. Just a little extra work to have something around the house that's just a little bit healthier than what you buy in the store. And that's kind of my goal sometimes. Just, you know, here and there, just make some switches. I don't eat perfect all the time, but if I can make something a little bit of a switch, make it a little bit more fresh, then it's just so much better. So until next time, I'm Rev Blake Dog. Enjoy.
A Rev Blake Dog production.